On today's episode of Let's Grow Together, I talk with Eva Collins, and we really go in a number of different directions on this week's episode. And it's so cool just kind of how everything flows and correlates together. But we cover her experience and stories that she has of meditation, and she did a silent retreat and just like all of these real cool things. But then she also talks about her struggle with perfectionism and how she was able to overcome that. So just some really awesome actionable things that go on and just like really cool stories. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. So let's just dive in. But first, the intro. Welcome to Let's Grow Together. My name is Nick Monotadibus, motivational speaker and digital marketing strategist. And this podcast is all about helping you grow both in life and business. Let's dive in. Here we are, and I am excited as always, but we have a very special guest, and I'm really excited to kind of dive into wherever this conversation may go. So I'd like to welcome Eva Collins. How are you?
I'm so good. Thanks for having me, Nick. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the show. So why don't you take a moment and just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Yeah, so my name's Eva Collins, and my company is called Boss Lady Digital, and I help a lot of service-based boss ladies create an online business, and usually that's through building up their presence on social media. Instagram is my jam, and then from there I help them create a course or online program so that they can scale and run an online business and live a life of freedom. And I have a background in health coaching, in yoga teaching, in a lot of spirituality and mindfulness work. So I blend that into my online work as well.
Love it. So many directions for us to potentially go. Um, one thing that I often talk about on the show, and it's always interesting to see, different aspects, and I'm sure you can shed some light as somebody who does yoga, some mindset. There's definitely going to be some underlying morning routines and things that you do. So I would love for you to tell me a little bit about kind of like what your morning routines like, and kind of take us through that process a little bit.
Yeah, I freaking love morning routines. And I've seen how much they really like change my state, they change my mood, and they have become totally essential. Like, I'm not the type of person who rolls out of bed like just super happy and excited, or the type of person who is like type A with to-do lists. Like, I'm pretty much notoriously kind of lazy. And I can sometimes tend to have a bit of a downer attitude that's just real. And so that's why I really need to have my morning routine, because it's like get myself in a good state so that I can set off on a good foot. So some of the things I love to do is in general, I give myself hella time in the morning. Like, I don't really schedule something before 10 a.m., usually like 11 a.m. I'm not going to coach or teach before then because I need time to like have to myself. So I have a new law of attraction daily journal. So it writes out like what your goals are for the day, what your to-dos are, some things you're grateful for. So I'll fill that out for the day and look at my schedule. I will meditate and do some yoga every morning, and it's amazing how that will shift things for me. Sometimes I'll read different affirmations or positive thoughts. And then I always try and read some kind of material. So whether that be like an app online, a daily app, or a book that I'm reading from, I'll try and read something positive from there. So I freaking love morning routines.
Love it. Yes, me too. I'm all about it. Hence, that's like the number one question I ask on this show. But it's such a cool aspect, and obviously there's a different levels there. But I'm curious. You mentioned it briefly, but you have like a pre-existing journal, or I guess that you said law of attraction journal. What specifically is like in that?
Yeah, so I just got it recently. I had been eyeing it for a really long time, and I had the bigger version, but I wanted the one that really dove into each day. And so it lists like your goals. It says write out an affirmation for the day, maybe write a quote for the day. It also has like a habit tracker on the left if you want to be tracking your water, or if you did your this or that. It also has like a set like calendar or a time frame for the day. So it's really good for me to see like, okay, I have this at this time and that at that time. And then there's a recap for the end of the day. So there comes in the night routine, is like, how was my day? What emotions did I feel? And I don't get to all of these all the time, you guys, but something. And then it has a little spot for you to journal. So I'll write out some notes from the day or something that stood out. So it really dives into like your habits and then your thoughts and emotions and your goals for the day.
Interesting. So it's a planner plus a journal like combo in one.
Yeah. Like when you open the page, it's like I think it's 2 pages for that one day. It's like there's a lot for the one day.
Interesting. Out of like the things listed in the journal, what do you find is like the most effective for you or most powerful?
Hmm. There is a spot where it talks about list any emotions you felt that day and then what led up to those emotions or what were the reasons around them. And so I guess like in general, I'm not really someone who's like super aware of my emotions. I think I'm pretty just chill, but I've been able to notice like, oh, when I felt super happy, or oh, was I triggered AF and about something that happened that day, I'm able to reflect on it a little bit. So I do think checking in with the emotions for the day is powerful and what created them. And then I think really listing out my goals and to-dos for the day, because we can just roll out of bed, look at the phone, and go on and not really have a goal or to do. That's the other thing, Nick, is I don't look at my phone or social media until like 10 o'clock or something. And I actually forward all my mail that I don't get it until later in the day because I'm that hardcore.
Wow. I love that. I do make it a point to not look at social media first thing in the morning. Like I purposely I leave my phone in my room and then I go down and I do my whole morning routine without my phone. So because I have a problem. Like I'll go on it if I have it. I can't have
Yes,
it on me at all. So like that's kind of a just know yourself kind of aspect. Um which is pretty cool. But I do want to, I have a question. I'm wondering if you would be willing to share. You mentioned like some of the emotions that are coming up, and if you would be willing to maybe share an example of how something that triggered and I guess how you reflected upon that and how you were able to kind of use the journal in that reflection of your emotions to,
mm,
um, you know, figure out the next step in how you can improve it for the next time.
totally. So far in having the journal, I only kind of recorded one bad one bad vibe, one bad feeling. But it was something with a family member where I felt like triggered, like, oh, this person's not listening to me, or oh, this is messed up, and see, this is going to go this way. And so I had 2 voice memos from this person. And I thought in the voice memos it was going to be saying something negative or they were angry. So I was like, I'm not listening to these voice memos. I'm going to hold off because I thought for sure that's how it was going to go. I listened to them. They were fine. They were good. It was not even what I had, thought in my mind. So I think just the fact that there's that place in the journal for me to be like, yo, how did your emotions go today? Because we don't ever do that, or I don't do that, is powerful. And then to also say, what was the emotion behind me feeling fearful and triggered, is because I was feeling fear. I thought something was going to go this way. So I think it's just really good to recognize it and be aware of it. There's also been times where I think like I felt just like off or like feelings, and that came around being on social media too much. So to have that awareness and then say what were my actions or what was going on around that helps to see a pattern of what's going on for me.
Yeah, amazing. And it's such an important aspect of self, evaluation, but that comes with self reflection first. And we have to notice what we're doing when we're doing certain things. I always talk about how reflection is one of the most important parts in like your nightly routine, and kind of how you incorporate that so that we can see how the day was, what was good, and just really like taking that time to see where we can improve also. Um, and one thing I wanted to like kind of come back to a little bit, because you mentioned your goals and how that's like an important part as well. Like one of the, you mentioned the emotions and the goals. So out of the goals, how do you strategize in like creating your goals? Are they short-term goals? Are they long-term goals? Like, are they massive goals? I'm just curious, like what your process is for that.
Yeah. So hopefully this will be helpful for people who maybe aren't great at setting goals. Like in the past, I'm really not a goal setter. um you know I teach yoga that's like very like soft and gentle. I teach meditation that's all about like leaning back and allowing, and there's those times where we need to do that and be softer, and then there's times where it's like you need to bring the fire, you need to set a date, you need to bring that goal. So it has been something that's been harder for me to actually set a goal and push myself in that way. But what I do is, and this is new for me, but I'll set the goal up in terms of every quarter. So just 3 months out, because otherwise it's very overwhelming to me. So for the next 90 days, what am I doing? What am I working on for this, this season? And from there, I will kind of like just set general dates down on the calendar and to-dos from there, like nothing super exciting. But I have a list in my phone of things that I want to do for that day. So on the one hand, it's like, cool, what is my bigger picture? Where am I going in these next couple of months? And that might be a bigger, scarier goal. Mostly making sure that I'm like consistently selling something in my business, not just aimlessly posting. But the other part of it is also like my goal for the day. So what does that mean that I'm getting done for the day? And I have a breakdown actually for my goals for each week. So basically it's like a schedule that on Mondays I'm doing this, on Tuesdays I'm working on that, all to get towards my goal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That focus, that level of clarity to be able to, this is my goal in the next 90 days and the tasks that follow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so huge. The systems that we create in our daily routines to get our goals is everything. So many people, they write goals, but then they don't actually do the actions necessary for the goals. I think it's James Clear, and I hope I'm not messing up the quote, but it's we rise to the level of our goals and fall to the level of our systems.
Mm,
And so it's just such an important aspect of how we're, the reason why writing the goals is the first step, but we can't stop there. We need to make sure that the actions throughout the day correlate to achieving those goals throughout.
totally, totally. And I'm a super visual person, so I have a huge vision board that I always like to look at. It's near my desk, and it helps to remind me of what I'm doing, what I'm creating, what I'm cooking up. And then the other part of it is, like you said, and I get really fired up about this, especially in my industry. But there's two parts to the dream, to the manifestation, to the goal. Dreaming it and thinking of it and moving towards that in your mind, and then also putting the work in to get there. In the realm of people who are like healers and coaches and people who are into the woo woo, which is more my niche, sometimes all they do is just sit at home and say affirmations and aren't actually putting a plan into place to take action, to take hard, tangible actions. And um, so it has to be this blend of both. And that's something that I get on my soapbox a lot about.
Yes, love it. Taking action. It's such an important aspect of, you can have a journal and a planning, but if you're not taking the steps to move things forward, um then it's not gonna work. Is there specific, when you go on your soapbox that you like, because I'd love to get one of those, on here, about that aspect of like taking action and, you know, critically, and if there's like something specific that you did that like dramatically changed your business through some form of action?
Yeah. Well, I think like we need both to be, listening to ourselves, to have that more softer side of getting into alignment, maybe meditating and writing out your dreams. We need that softer side. And then we also need that harder side of actually taking action. So I think just knowing that they're both really important and they both need to work together is great, because you can be hustling, you can be taking every action, you can be a workaholic and be fastly going down the wrong lane. You can create something you hate. You can create something you don't care about. You could create something that you don't even want to sell, or you could be creating something that's the wrong niche just because you should, right? I've seen a ton of different stuff with clients. So knowing that you need to be aligned and you need to take action is super important. But the one thing that majorly shifted things for me and helped me to set goals and helped me to actually take action was letting go of perfectionism. So for me, I thought everything really needed to be perfect. I compared myself to these huge bigwigs in the online world, or, okay, like Gabby Bernstein does her meditations this way, or so and so has a course that looks like this. And it had me in this paralysis of never actually taking action, because I thought, well, mine doesn't look like that, so surely I'm not ready. Like mine doesn't look like that, or I haven't gotten those signups, so surely I'm not ready. So letting go of that perfectionism, which is essentially just fear, masked fear, letting go of that perfectionism was huge. And I had a teacher tell me once that for me, my 70% done was done. To stop at 60, 70%, that was my level of perfect, and to ship it and to let go of the thing and actually put it out there in the world. So that's helped me to take action for sure.
Whoa, I've never heard a specific percentage of like publishing or, perfectionism and being like, all right, well, 70% is good enough. And I think that's so awesome. And, with the types of clients that I work with when it comes to video, I think that's like such a great thing. I'm totally stealing that. Um, but I think it's so cool. Again, 70%, because we get so caught up in this level of perfectionism and things need to be perfect. And it's not factual. It's not realistic into, that level of perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, 70%. That's cool.
Yeah. And then it's so silly too when we look at comparing everything to someone else. Like I was comparing my course or my sales page or my Instagram post to someone else who was in the same field as me, someone higher up than me, quote higher up, right? But that's like the worst thing you can do, because it doesn't matter. They're not the one buying it. They're not the one who needs our help. We should really be saying, is this good enough for the people who need our help? Whoever wants to buy a program on Instagram marketing from me, or learn about online courses, uh, they are not looking at someone else's page in that same way, and it just needs to be perfect enough to help them, perfect enough to get that information across, not perfect enough that it looks like some other like bigwig. So it's really like not even a matter of how does it look to someone else's in the industry, but how does it look to your ideal client who you're showing up for and helping.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy to compare ourselves to the big wigs and, you know, but at the same time, they have so many more resources. They have, teams of people. They've got years of experience. And, they only got there because they were bad once too, They
Yes.
had horrible business cards and like terrible videos, and it's just like before they had somebody else that was gonna edit it and make it better. And I feel like that's such an important aspect of this process in taking the time to just put stuff out there and not worry about it being perfect and focus on that level of service. I love that you brought that up, and just like focusing on the people that we can help.
Yeah. For me, I think I always, always, always say that and bring it back to being of service, because honestly, if I had it my way, I would just hide somewhere and just like not really be seen. And kind of hide out in some job or something. But I started my business of teaching other like entrepreneurs, females, how to market, how to do social media, and how to do it in like a soulful, aligned way, because I saw so much bad crap out there, right? So that kind of got me out of my shell to teach and help other people, because I saw bad crap, I saw bad lessons, I went through bad coaching, or I went through bad online lesson experiences. So I'm doing this because I absolutely love it. And I also want to make a difference or help people. And literally all of the clients that I work with, the people who are in my programs, are like other health coaches, right? Or yoga teachers. And they're not there to like make a fortune. They know, and that's fine, like they should make a fortune, but they know that it's about being of service and helping others. So one of my mantras I always say is, if you get nervous, focus on service. You know, if you're being stuck in your head, that's not helping anything or anybody. And so how can you just be of service and focus on being helpful?
I love that. When you're nervous, focus on service. And I use a similar aspect in talking about, people doing video, and just like focus on that one person that, you can help. And you mentioned briefly about, kind of getting over that, and you would rather just sit and, hide out. So I'm curious if there was like one of your first, kind of big steps towards like stepping out that you can recall, that is kind of a maybe inspiring a little bit for somebody that may be hesitant to, taking that leap.
Oh man. So for the people who know me in my community, this is like a notorious story. But I actually did 5 yoga teacher trainings before I really started teaching, because I was that freaked out, nervous, just did not want to be out there in front of people, felt like I was not good enough. I compared myself to all these other big teachers. So I did 5 yoga trainings, which is a lot. And I loved them, but I was still too scared to teach. So the first time that I was supposed to teach, I believe I like manifested getting the flu. I was literally too sick to teach, and I couldn't teach this enormous, big community class. I had to get somebody to cover it. And I was so relieved at that, right? And through time, I was able to breathe and calm myself and hype myself up to actually go and teach. And so there was a couple things to the story, but I started teaching what I wanted, not what someone else was telling me to teach. The class that was really in my heart, the kind of yoga and meditation that I wanted to teach, because otherwise I was not going to be there. So teaching what you love and feel called to, or creating that course, or being in that niche that you want to, I think is really important. And then also knowing that if you're scared, that doesn't mean you're not supposed to do it. If you're nervous, it doesn't mean you're in the wrong place and you're a fraud. If you're not fantastic at it the first couple times, that doesn't mean anything. That means you're a human and an entrepreneur. And again, just knowing that those are normal feelings is super, I think, like, oh, okay, I'm a normal person. So I was super scared to teach. Over time, I started my own class, like I was saying, that method that I wanted to teach. And then I used to like jump up and down in the bathroom before class and be like, okay, I can do it, I can do it. And over time, I ended up selling the class out. I mean, the room was just maxed out and there wasn't any room for it. And it felt great and it felt amazing. But it was definitely like riding a bike. You're going to have to get on that bike to feel comfortable on it. And know that just because you wobble on the bike doesn't mean, oh, run the other way, choose a different course, you're a imposter. It means that's how it goes. That's how it goes for a lot of people, is you have to ride that bike.
Love it. Awesome. And not to mention, I love that you mention how you didn't want to do it somebody else's method. So you kind of transitioned to yours. Can you like elaborate a little bit more on not necessarily like the teaching itself, but just like being comfortable and being like, no, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it my own, and how that impacted the results.
Yeah, I'm such a proponent of this, and really doing what authentically feels great for you. I'm very much a rebel. I lived in New York for 10 years. It's like if you tell a New Yorker what to do, they're just going to do the opposite, is the vibe. So there's definitely that part of me, but yeah, at the studio that I was teaching at, it was, this is the class. It was a very like heated, strong, workout type of class, which is the opposite of me. I am not that type in any way, shape, or form. So what I wanted to teach was a more like calm yin style flowing yoga that also blends tai chi and qigong, which is what I had trained in for years. So it just felt like, well, of course I don't want to get up there in front of the class and teach it because I don't love it. I don't do it. I don't want to. So really noticing that incongruence in you, in whatever it is you're putting out there to the world, like, do you love it? Do you want to be doing it? And if not, what do you want to do? Because you have permission to do that, right? Especially as entrepreneurs. So that was really fantastic for me to say, this is what I could do if I would do it for free. If I would do it, shouting from the rooftops, if anyone would listen, it would be this style in this class, in this methodology. And, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So I'm a huge proponent of teaching this in the online business world. If somebody tells you you have to do a webinar this way, or you have to have an email sequence, or you have to have a course or anything, you should always check in with, is this what I really want? Is this what I feel lit up about? Because otherwise you're not going to care about it. You're not going to follow through on it. It's really going to show. So really making sure that it resonates with you and that it feels authentic to you is so important in all aspects of your life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like there's so many underlying truths to that message too with everything that we do. Specifically like in our businesses. If you don't love your business, like what are you doing? Like this is your business. So I feel it's an important aspect. And one of the things too, I actually heard this quote from one of my coaching clients, bringing me to school, which is great. But he made a comment about um you know you don't have to like be in love. I forget the exact quote, now I'm going to butcher it, but you don't have to be passionate about the everyday, but passionate about getting your clients results. And I think that
Mm.
that's a really important aspect too, to understand. If it's like not necessarily full on you, but the other side too is like you still should be enjoying what you're doing, and understanding that that level of joy is chosen for you, and you have the ability to pivot and change. I love that you were like, you have permission to be authentically you, and how we make those choices. And for me, for example, like video, it's always like, if you're like struggling to do video, then it's the why that's struggling you for the most part. Like if you're not passionate about the topics, it's going to be very obvious. It's going to be so obvious that you are not passionate about the content that you're talking about, in which case maybe you're not in the right business.
Yeah, yeah. And that's just so good, right? If you're not passionate about the topic, then who cares about the video or the little transitions or the editing? And I feel like so often I see people in business or their careers really get stuck in that behind the scenes twirling around of, oh, well, is it this that's working? Or, oh, my emails aren't being opened, or oh, my master class didn't work. And it's like, but do you love it? Like, do you love it? Because people aren't going to want to watch it if you don't want to watch it, if you don't even want to be talking about it. And so, like, I had that experience that I was deep into the health coaching world. I was studying nutrition in school. I studied all different kinds of intuitive eating practices, and our relationship with food and body was what I had studied and worked on for years. And I really felt sick of it. I had an epiphany about my business, that I was sitting in a restaurant and someone next to me was talking about food in this way and like intuitive eating. And I had the thought of like, oh my God, turn and like don't have somebody, like someone would be like, oh, you should talk to Eva about that. That's what she does. And the thought in my mind was like, oh God, please don't have them talk to me. Right. Because I was burnt out on the subject. I didn't care. And I had moved on from that subject in my life. So I was like, oh, that's not good. That's not good. We don't have to wonder why my calls aren't converting or why this in this class. Because if I don't love talking about it, I'm naturally going to push away sales, and I'm going to push away that success because our hearts really aren't in it. So I really experienced that lesson in life and business.
Yeah, and it's such an important part too, because if we want to succeed in the business, we have to have that level of interest and passion towards that goal. And so I feel a lot of times people may have another topic or another business that they want to do, but are like, well, I've always done this, so I can't do that.
Hmm.
Like it won't work. But at the end of the day, if that's what you really want to do and that's what you're super passionate about, like you'll figure it out, and if you don't feel that you want to try it, then you must not like it that much. You must not be that passionate, because if you are that passionate about it, it should be somewhat of an easy choice to being like, all right, well, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to
Hmm.
make whatever it takes. As James Wedmore says, your success is inevitable. So if your success is inevitable, then why not do the thing that absolutely you love?
Hmm. Do the thing that you're going to have a blast, have a blast creating or diving into or talking about, rather than something that, you're avoiding totally. And I also love like the coaching question of, if you knew either route would be a success, you knew you're going to make like 20 million either route and have like success and like applause. If you knew either one was going to work, which one would you choose? And that's always a really great coaching question. But I do think a lot of people get stuck on, oh, but I have a million certifications in this, or but I don't have certification in this other thing, or my whole life I've been doing this. How could I possibly walk away? And it's not like you need to make any decisions or walk away from anything, but just kind of cracking open the mind to say, you do have options. And what are you really feeling called to do?
Yeah, exactly. And, just taking the time to being like, well, what if it was possible? What if I could do this? How would that look? What could I do today to make that happen? It's not like quit what you're doing right now and immediately follow this other thing. Like
Yeah.
that's not the case, it's how can we start moving into the direction that we want to do, and how that can look so that you can start taking the small actions to make that become your reality.
Mhm. Mhm. Totally. Like when I was pivoting from doing this like yoga teaching as much, and I was doing like life coaching and a lot of spiritual woo woo work, and I had been teaching yoga, or I'd been a part of the yoga world for 15 years. And I thought, oh, I really want to teach Instagram and online marketing. Like I really, really want to. And I spent a couple months where I just stopped everything. I stopped my email list. I stopped anything that was related to my health coaching and yoga, and I just gave myself permission to explore and say, if I don't have to be doing anything, what is it that I want to do? And long story short, the first thing that I did was create an in-person Instagram marketing class. And it sold out. And it was so freaking fun. I had a blast. I was like, I would do this for free. And like that first just pivot, and like if it was possible and if I could do it fun and just in a low key way, what would I do? Lead a meetup on Instagram for Instagram. And you always get the information that you need to say, okay, from here what's next. But just taking those little actions and being open to what's possible is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to shift a little bit, and one thing that you had mentioned and you had talked about is meditation. And as you said you had a lot of training in it. And now I'm curious on kind of like your meditation process, because there's a lot of different ways, a lot of people with different opinions on it. So I'd love to hear more about your kind of meditation process.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I started doing yoga just growing up in my living room of my house. My mom would always be doing yoga. So I just grew up with that in the house. I grew up in a very wacky liberal San Francisco home. And then I grew up doing gymnastics. So from there I thought, ooh, I want to do more yoga. And the meditation and mindfulness came from that, where the very first yoga teacher training I had, we would sit down and just meditate for a half hour. And that just blew my mind because I was a bartender in New York City, and then I was going to this yoga teacher training and having to just sit and breathe and be present. And it was such a big shift for me. even though I had been doing yoga for a long time. So first got into the physical movement of yoga, and then really just sitting down and watching your breath and watching your thoughts in that yoga training. From there, I did different like silent retreats and sweat lodges and all different kinds of like spiritual trainings. I lived in an ashram in San Francisco, and this was like a wild story. It was kind of like not for me. It was so strict and like dogmatic. But every day we had meditation at 5:30 in the morning. And I had just left living in New York City. I just left bartending because that's mostly what I did in New York for like 8 years. And I had left New York City and I was like, I'm moving back home to San Francisco. And I moved into this ashram where every day at 5:30 we would meditate for a half hour. And then in the rest of the day, we would go on a walking meditation. So it was quiet, but we would be on a walking meditation. So I think it's just a really amazing practice to chill the F out, to have a bit more space between what's going on in the world and yourself, to have space between, you know, your thoughts and yourself, and really create a baseline feeling of feeling connected to yourself and calm and present. And you don't have to have any kind of crazy guided stuff. You don't even need to do anything specific, but to have that dedicated time of leading your mind and your spirit back to this place of stillness, of quiet, of just listening is so powerful. So I could go on about it a ton, but that's a bit of a gist of how I got into it and why I think it's important.
Yeah. You mentioned there's two things. When you mentioned moving to San Francisco, back to San Francisco, what is that place that you had to wake up at 5:30? What can you go more into what that is?
Yeah, so I lived in a yoga ashram. So an ashram is a place where everyone lives there and is dedicated to like a yoga practice. And so every day at 5:30 we would have meditation, where we would start sitting down at 5:30. And in the beginning I was like, oh my god, this is terrible, like my legs falling asleep, like screw these people, what am I doing here? And I would just sit there and watch everybody. That's literally what I did. I just sat there and watched everybody, and I would judge them and be like, ooh, they just moved their leg, oh, they just fluttered their eye. That's literally what I did. And I sat there judging everybody, which was a fabulous beginning. That was a fabulous beginning, right? And then over time I started to say, okay, maybe I can keep my eyes closed for like 10 seconds. And then, okay, maybe I can start to notice my breath, or you're able to just kind of soften in deeper. But I really just sat there judging everybody, thinking this is all a bunch of crap. And then slowly over time, I noticed that I was so much more less reactionary. I noticed that I wouldn't get angry at something a coworker said, or when my mom said this or that. I just had this kind of like happy pill feeling. And so yeah, the ashram was wild. I lived there for about 6 weeks. That's as much as I could take. Everyone has specific chores and you have specific roommates. And then they were going to give everyone a spiritual name. And I was like, okay, I'm out. I was like, I don't need a spiritual name. And I was like, yeah, that's enough for me. It was too dogmatic, but I learned a lot. And by the end of it, I was able to sit there for a half hour, really actually meditating, which I never in my life thought would be possible.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, when you give it a shot and you keep an open mind, you never know what you may discover, you know. That's such a cool aspect. Now, you did mention something else that I had to ask you about too. You mentioned a silent retreat. What was that about? Like,
Ooh,
how was that?
oh my gosh. So the silent retreat was nuts. I mean, so it was at the end of a yoga teacher training that I did. So everyone who was a part of this yoga teacher training went to upstate New York to the Catskills, and we were all in this space for a week and we were silent. So like before you go in, it's like, okay, you kind of turn in your phones. I don't know if we actually turn them in, but you really turn them off. You weren't allowed to have like books or even like an iPod back in the day. Nothing to distract yourself from yourself. And on the one hand, it was amazing because I am not really a huge fan of like little small talk. So to not have to do little small talk all the time was so relaxing. Like I remember, you're in line to have food at breakfast and there's only one piece of something left. And I remember being in line in front of someone and thinking, oh no, I should ask, like, does someone else want this? Like, I can't take the last one. And I was like, that's what you're doing. It's a silent retreat. You're just going to take this. So on the one hand, it was really lovely and interesting to not have this small talk. I also saw how much of our communication is nonverbal, like just kind of looking at a friend and laughing and knowing we were both kind of watching something at the same time. Just kind of knowing what mood someone was in without, verbalizing it. So it was a really wild experience. At the end, I do remember like crying a lot in a yoga class, just feeling like exhausted with not being able to kind of express some things. But it was really lovely. And it is quite a journey to not really have a way to escape from yourself and your thoughts. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh gosh, because I've heard of these like silent retreats, and they fascinate me. People who know me, and I'm sure you guys listening know I like to talk sometimes. So it'd be really interesting for me to do that. I think I could do it. Like obviously, again, and I feel it would be very eye opening. However, like a lot of people struggle with their own thoughts.
Hmm.
And how long was the retreat?
It was 1 week.
1 week, not talking to anyone the whole time.
Nope.
Wow. I think that is so awesome. Like, so eye opening to what you're going to experience through that process. Um, you mentioned it being like emotional. I don't know. Do you mind? Like, I'm just curious. Like, if you don't have to go into like too specific, but if like willing to share a little bit about what that experience was able to do for you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even remember specifically what I was emotional about, but in general, like being away on a retreat for a week where you have like 2 yoga classes a day and all the food is made for you and you're sitting out in nature, and it can kind of just be an intense thing. You're like, oh God, before I was like with my Brooklyn roommates and bartending, and now here I am on this entire retreat. And I just remember kind of just feeling like um, reaching an end of myself and just like bawling, just being like frustrated, not about anything about the retreat, but just feeling like emotion. If we can't maybe get things out through talking, you reach a point where you're just like, ugh, just, crying. So I don't even remember what I was emotional about, but I remember like being super emotional. The end of the yoga retreat, just to give you the like icing on the cake, we opened up the silence. So like we broke the silence by doing a sweat lodge. So in the sweat lodge is where we started speaking again and singing, and like it was the end of the retreat, and that was a wild experience. So um that was part of it too.
Wait, a sweat lodge. Is that just like a sauna that you're doing yoga in, or how does that work?
So it can mean a lot of things, but we did a traditional Native American ceremony where the land that we were on is where they had done these ceremonies very often, and we had a Native American leader come and walk us through the process. So in a nutshell, it's hot stones that are brought inside of like cloth tent, and they put more stones and they put different like um, leaves or herbs and things on the stones to make it smell and spark and stuff. And it's very hot, so it's like an intense sauna. And there's also like singing and chanting and different maybe spiritually guided things that go on. But the intensity is that it is very hot. You are sweating. Most of the people are like, it's pitch black in there, but you're like just in your swimsuit and you're like really hot, and also going through it emotionally because half the time you're like, oh, should I leave? Should I leave? Okay, no, I'm okay. Oh, should I leave? I'm okay. So it was pretty cool.
That is fascinating. I didn't expect a like Native American aspect into that. So cool. So many different unique experiences from that like overall just, you know, man, bouncing around like going from New York, I can only imagine the city that never sleeps to waking up at 5:30 to meditate. Um had have been pretty eye-opening. But this has been so enlightening, and so kind of awesome to hear the different perspectives and the different things that you've been able to kind of experience and shed light on. You know, there's definitely been some huge talking points here throughout today of just like 70% action. I love that. Like I'm gonna remember that. Like getting people to get their videos, and I'm just wondering if you have any. I have one more question, but I was going to ask you if you had any like final thoughts of things that you wanted to add off of anything that we kind of discussed today.
Hmm. Well, I think I would bring it back to the, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So really looking at your life and your business and your relationships as all connected. And if you're noticing something in your life or your business that you're not enjoying, to just know that they're connected. And so I like to tell people, like, whatever you're wanting to practice in your business, practice it in your meditation, practice it in your yoga. If you want to work on taking action and setting a goal, set a hard pose for yourself. Make yourself do some, exertion exercises. If you want to work on letting go of control, passing things off to a VA, work on that on your yoga and meditation, then relax back, do some relaxing work, because it really is all super connected. So yeah, I always think that's a really fun and powerful one to look at in your life and business.
Absolutely. Love it. And then one of the last things I like to ask is if you have any books that just like were absolutely game changers, that you just absolutely love and recommend to other people.
Oh my gosh, I'm such a book hoarder. So Byron Katie is one of my favorite authors, favorite like spiritual work I've ever encountered. She has a book called Loving What Is. And it really helped me to drop judgment and drop the kind of thoughts that I had in my head that I needed to let go of. Byron Katie, it's like a system of inquiry of basically looking at your thoughts and not telling yourself wild stories, which is super powerful. Also, You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. Classic good one on like, get your act together to charge what you're worth, to grow up and to love money and get it out there. And The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks is one that was really fabulous around knowing that we kind of stop ourselves. Like when I was mentioning I was teaching yoga and I was too scared and I got the flu, we have these points where we kind of sabotage ourselves. So really learning to break through those beliefs and break through those places where you sabotage yourself and look at why you're doing it is so powerful. So those are a couple I love.
Awesome. Out of those three, what's your favorite out of those three?
Oh, definitely Byron Katie.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I just want to say thank you for joining me. And what's the best place for somebody to get in touch with you, follow you? Where are you at on the social?
Yeah, you can find me at bossladydigital.com. And I'm always on Instagram at Eva Collins. And those two places are usually where I hang out.
Awesome. Love it, Eva. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's so fun to chat, and thanks for listening to all the fun stories and thoughts that I got to share with you.
Yeah. Thank you for being open and sharing and lots of different directions and lots of lessons to take hold and, on your journey. So thank you everyone for listening. Appreciate your time. And remember, let's keep growing together.
Wait, one more thing. I would first like to say thank you. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this message, please take a moment to write a review. By writing a review, it helps people find this message and helps me help more people. And if you really, really liked it and you think this message could help someone else, take a screenshot, share it on Instagram, and please tag me at Nick J. Boni, NickJBoni, so I can show my appreciation for you. We can all win by helping each other grow. Thank you. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.